Class is now in session. I'm Professor Hockey, and today we'll be discussing the game between the Sharks and the Ducks, in which the Sharks lost 4-3 in overtime. So a bit of a consolation prize there with the extra point, and it's technically not a 5-game regulation losing streak, but it is still a 5-game losing streak, although they do move up to 95 points, 6 points ahead of the Golden Knights and 4 points behind the Calgary Flames, although they have the extra game played over both of those teams. And it came into the first period, and the Sharks were playing some decent hockey. I feel like it was still somewhat uninspired. I feel like there was still not much doing offensively, but at least compared to the Los Angeles Kings game, the Sharks were playing better defensive hockey, although by the end of the first period, they were the team trailing by a goal when it was Rickard Rakell scoring his 12th of the season. Come second period, the Sharks still picking up the pace here a bit. They get the game-tying goal from Kevin Labanc. They were still playing some solid hockey, again defensively, not necessarily offensively, and it was a tie game going into the third period. But the third period was volatile last night for the San Jose Sharks against the Los Angeles Kings, and it seemed to be the case here again tonight here against the Ducks. They give up a power play that the Ducks managed to score on. Adam Henrique takes the 2-1 lead. The Sharks do bring it back with a Timo Meier power play goal, but then again, it is Rickard Rakell on the power play later on in the third period to give the Ducks a third lead in this game, 3-2. Justin Braun would be able to tie that game up 3-3. We would head to overtime, and the Sharks didn't even get to touch the puck a single time in this overtime, because just about 40 seconds in, it would be Jacob Silfverberg sniping it for the extra point for the Ducks, who are very far out of a playoff position. So the Sharks, another disappointing result here, as they'll drop both games on this short California road trip to Anaheim and Los Angeles against the two worst teams in the Western Conference. First thing to talk about would be Aaron Dell, and honestly, I thought Dell was quite bad in this game, and he was definitely a major reason why the Sharks were unable to win tonight. And you're going to be thinking, well, you weren't very hard on Martin Jones the other night, letting in 3 goals, and you're so hard now on Aaron Dell. What's the deal with that? But because I thought the Sharks were quite bad defensively against the Los Angeles Kings, I don't think that's much of a secret. And so while Martin Jones did give up a soft one, which was that first one to Dustin Brown, and the second one as well was potentially somewhat soft as well, I thought Martin Jones was required to make some great saves, and so evened out over the full night, it still wasn't that bad of a result to only have let in 3 goals in that one. But Aaron Dell really wasn't called upon to make many great saves at all. I think the only one that comes to mind would be that glove save on Devon Shore, and that was a puck that was potentially going wide, and it was fluttering. It was moving somewhat slowly even, so it just looked nice. I don't even think it was that great of a save, and otherwise, whenever Dell was really called upon to come up big for the Sharks, the Ducks would either miss the net or fail to get a shot off, or they'd score a goal. That's how it felt. I mean, the first goal from Rickard Rakell, it was a good shot. Maybe you can excuse Aaron Dell. I did not like the goal he let into Adam Henrique. The third one, it was also a decent shot with a screen in front, but again, one good chance and Aaron Dell's letting it in. And then the final goal in the overtime from Silfverberg, it was a nice shot, but there was no screen in front really. Aaron Dell should probably have this one when this puck is coming from pretty far out, and it was just a disappointing night in general for Aaron Dell. And so many people talk about the San Jose Sharks. Their main weak point here is at goalie, and it seems as though Aaron Dell, so far this season, at least Martin Jones has had some bright spots. Aaron Dell has had very, very few bright spots. I mean, I thought he was okay in relief against the Golden Knights in the previous game that Jones was pulled in. I thought he had some decent nights this season against the Oilers, but it was actually a pretty rough season thus far for Aaron Dell. I don't know if he's even going to get another game at some point. The Sharks do have one more back-to-back against the Flames and the Golden Knights. It'll be interesting to see if Aaron Dell gets either of those, or if they decide to just go with Martin Jones in both of them. But it's been a disappointing season for Aaron Dell, who was signed to be a stable backup and is actually being paid pretty handsomely for a backup goaltender, close to $2 million, and he's been disappointing left and right this season. Next, I will talk about the special teams, and this is Special Teams 2.0, because I did mention them last night against the Kings, and I said that they need to improve, because while the Sharks didn't have a penalty to kill last night, they did go 0 for 2 in the power play. The Sharks basically turned that up to 11 with another disappointing night on the special teams. Just to first say, there were 8 penalties called in this game, and I thought the officiating was horrific in this one. Not that they missed calls and there should have been more, but there should have been a lot less. I felt like for both sides, the Ducks probably could have had, maybe a couple of penalties in this one, 2, maybe 3, while a couple of them definitely should not have been penalties. The Sharks themselves probably only should have had maybe 1 to 2 penalties, but they ended up getting called for 3. I thought the officiating was quite bad in this game, but that doesn't really matter. I don't think that's the reason the Sharks lost. I think the reason the Sharks lost was because of their struggles on the penalty kill and on the power play. They go 1 for 3 on the penalty kill, giving up the Henrique goal and the second Rickard Rakell goal. And it wasn't even that bad in terms of penalty killing. I mean, on the Adam Henrique one, they do a good job at killing off the first 90 seconds, but they give up one chance, and you do have to blame Arundel partially, but still, it's not going to look good at the end of the night on the stat sheet, giving up 2 power play goals. And on the power play, they did technically score a goal from Timo Meier, but only because of a very bad, rare mistake from John Gibson, the goaltender. I feel like 99 times out of 100, he just basically eats up this Joe Thornton shot. Nothing comes from it, and the Sharks end up going 0 for 5 on the power play. So a disappointing night once more in both special teams areas, and that was a huge reason why they end up dropping this game against the Kings. I thought it was maybe a bit worrying, but 0 for 2 on the power play is not the worst thing in the world. They didn't have a penalty kill at all in that game, so it wasn't the reason they lost. But I think a big reason here tonight, besides Arundel, would be the special teams. Next, I will mention Evander Kane. I believe this is, his 4th or maybe 5th game back from injury, and he has looked subpar in every single one of those. And I feel like at this point, it's no longer about getting back up to game speed, and it seems more to be about getting back into the correct mental state. And you can't blame him for certainly being rattled about what did happen to him, but I can only really evaluate what exactly goes on the ice, and what I'm seeing right now is Kane just doesn't seem to have his head in the game, so I don't know what the solution is here. Obviously, I've never dealt with something as tragic as what Kane has dealt with, or as is in the middle, I guess, of dealing with, so I'm not exactly sure what the course of action here and what the Sharks could do for him or what he needs to do or anything like that. But it comes down to the on-ice product, and right now, Evander Kane just not really pulling his weight offensively. I will now finally mention Joachim Ryan. I believe this is his 5th game. The Sharks have lost every single game since Radim Shemek went down with that knee injury. I never really thought he was like the glue that held this team together, and I don't think that losing 5 games is directly correlated to the fact that Radim Shemek missed those. But I do think Brent Burns has somewhat struggled recently with Joachim Ryan in the lineup, and I do think Peter DeBoer clearly doesn't have much trust in him. I mean, Shemek came into the lineup originally not with much trust. He needed to earn some trust, needed to earn some rope with Peter DeBoer, and he did exactly that. Strong performances, game in, game out earlier on in Shemek's season, and that really built up that confidence that DeBoer could have in him, and eventually Shemek got some time on the penalty kill and was a solid, defensive player for the Sharks. But Joachim Ryan just hasn't been able to do that, and it's so disappointing because I really had a lot of hype about him last season. I thought he was going to be potentially a strong defensive partner for Brent Burns going into the future, and he's basically just blown it completely this season with such inconsistent play. I don't believe he got many minutes here in the 3rd period. He definitely didn't play for the last 15 minutes or so of it. Maybe there was a shift or something that I missed, but it didn't seem like he was basically ever on the ice. He only ended up with 12 minutes on the game as a whole, and I don't know if it's his confidence that got shot when maybe he was benched for the decaying corpse that was Paul Martin in the playoffs and at the end of the regular season last season, but something is going on with Joachim Ryan, and this potential, top 4 even defenseman that I thought he had the ability to become, seemingly that's not the case anymore, and he's looking a lot more like a 7th or even 8th defenseman for the San Jose Sharks, and that this Shemek injury is going to be a bit more of a problem that maybe we originally thought. But that will do it for this review. The Sharks will be back in action on Monday. They'll face off against the Detroit Red Wings, so another team that is out of the playoff race, another team that the Sharks shouldn't have too much of an issue dealing with. They did get Couture back in this game, although he did seem to certainly still be dealing with some sort of flu issues because of the fact that he wasn't that great in this one. It's not really much of a surprise. You take yourself out of one game the night before, it's unlikely that a single night's rest is going to be able to heal you completely to be at 100% game ready, but he probably inserts himself into the lineup to try and get the Sharks the win. It doesn't work. We'll see if anyone comes back. The only candidate would probably be Pavelski, and I doubt he actually ends up playing in that one. So hopefully it'll just be Logan Couture healing up. Maybe Kane can get something rolling. I did think Nyquist was pretty good tonight, so maybe there's something there. And also, one last thing to mention before I go, Michael Haley, not in the lineup today, so I'm sure many people, including myself, did have a bit of a celebration for that. It was almost seeming like maybe Michael Haley had like some blackmailing ability on Peter DeBoer as he's holding something over him, or maybe something like DeBoer when he's writing in the lineup, he would write in Lukáš Radil in like all caps or something, and then like some magic spell would occur and it would just change the letters into Michael Haley. That's what it seemed to be. But finally, Haley, first time here with his new tenure with the Sharks after being picked up off on waivers, being benched in this one surprisingly against the Anaheim Ducks. And I don't think the fourth line was that much better, maybe marginally better with Lukáš Radil there, but I do think it's a decent sign going forward that the Boer is at least willing to bench number 18. Class dismissed.